Hello everyone and welcome back to another Getting Stuff Painted, my bi-weekly update, give or take, on the miniatures I've been painting for the games we cover here on the channel. And even though there is a normal amount of models here-ish, I usually aim for like 12-ish models on either side of that, there's only 3 games represented, and 2 of them are taking up the lion's share. So I know I say this a lot, but I swear this is probably going to be a bit of a shorter one. I always say that and end up rambling. I will try not to this time. There is not super much to talk about, despite the fact I have done roughly the same number of models I usually do in this time period. We have Warcry / Age of Sigmar, represented entirely by the Sylvanith. We have one model from the Batman miniature game, which does have a little story connected to it, to be fair, that I'll tell when we get there. And then finally, the next kill team I've been working on for the kill team coverage on the channel. And it is, I keep on wanting to say the Wormblade, that is not who they are. That is the Genestealer cult, I think. These are the Mandrakes, which are Drukhari, I guess, Dark Eldar. They certainly have that aesthetic. Very interesting, not something I've painted before, and certainly nothing I'd normally paint for 40k. Like back when I played 40k, it was all Space Marines, Tau and Tyranids. So, very different challenge, and I'll talk about that as we get there. As usual, 90%-ish contrast paint with some texture paints and dry brushing on the side that we'll talk about. So let's get started. We have Sylvanith. Specifically, this is 5 Tree Revenants, and I didn't buy a box of these. I don't know what they're called because it was a friend of me who got me onto them. Games Workshop do these kind of like magazine releases, specifically just for Age of Sigmar. They come with I was going to say a free miniature. It's not free, you're paying for it. But it's usually a pretty good price. The magazines / leaflets, whatever you want to call them, they're usually about £4. So you get a squad of them. For instance, I've also got a Stormcast guy who's like riding a huge griffin. He was in one of them. I don't remember what the range of books or leaflets, comics, whatever you want to call them, are called, but it's a good way to just pick up odds and ends for Age of Sigmar factions that are handy if you want to play Warcry, because you don't need that many models. And yeah, so I picked this one up. It's Tree Revenants. I painted them in the style I have taken to doing for Sylvanith, so as I show you them, since they're all just the same unit, just different poses, the different weapons don't matter for the purposes of the unit in Warcry. For the ghostly parts of them that are coming out of the tree, I use Briar Queen Chill with Coelia Green Wash on top. I think it's Coelia or Quatia, one of the two. It's a green wash that Citadel does, and that's it. Basically, if you wanted to go one step further, I'd say do a very light dry brushing on some edges with Gracier, which is what they're based in. But I didn't do that in this instance because I felt like they looked fine. For like the leafy tassel thing hanging from his waist, and also for the leaves at the tip of the trees there, I used a mixture of Mantis Warrior Green and the other green, Striking Scorpion Green. There we go. Just on the brighter parts are Mantis, or sorry, are Striking Scorpion Green. The rest is Mantis Warrior Green. And for the wood parts, I start with a Rattling Grime layer of the contrast paint. I do a dry brushing of Dryad Bark dry paint, the technical paint that Citadel does. And then you usually do a non-oil just over the bark. Don't do that over the ghostly elf parts. Despite that, I still find it somewhat frustrating to work with these, like getting into every nook and cranny, even with watery contrast paint, proved a bit annoying. So I had to keep on going back when I noticed I'd missed parts. A little frustrating, but you know, it's fine. And these on their own actually fill up a majority of a Warcry 1000-point warband. You'd still need a hero to lead them of some variety. If you have an Arch Revenant, that would certainly do. Or like I don't know, some other, like the Karnoth Hunter with the great bow, great sword, whatever weapon you want to give him, that'd probably bring you close to 1000 points. So as far as like a cost-effective way to get a full list, not saying it's optimal or anything, that would certainly get the job done. For the inside of this banner, that is Skeletal Horde, and the outside is Gargag Sur, whatever it's called. I keep on mispronouncing that, so I'm just going to carry on mispronouncing that because that's how I have it stuck in my head that it's pronounced now. The Orc name plus Sur contrast paint. Easy to find, there's no other contrast paint with Sur in the name. Anyway, this one's got like a Wolverine claw, very big stabby hand. And oh yeah, for the base it's just, I painted it brown, glued on some grass flock, and these are just some army painter like flower effects I don't remember specifically what they're called, but they should be easy to find. Army Painter does a lot of different like flower sets and tufts that you can put on bases. And for Sylvanith especially, I like the effect, since they're all about the trees and woods and plants and such. And here's the last one, who's kind of made some kind of like ghostly shield he's holding close to them. A bit hard to pick out the tangles of wood, because he is holding it with this wood hand. I don't feel like I did that super tidy. Oh yeah, and I used Leadbelcher Silver for the, some of them have tokens hanging off part of them, or I don't know what they are, just emblems of some variety. I'm not up on Sylvanith lore really, so. But yeah, that is the entire squad done. Next time I'm painting up Sylvanith, again I'll be using the same style. I still have, I think the Arch Revenant came with 4, I thought I had the box handy but I don't. 4 just little cheap archers, so I've still got to do them. And then I think that's it. I don't think I have any more Sylvanith to do, and I think that leaves enough options open for some variety of lists in Warcry. So next from the Batman miniature game we have Tim. This is the non-Red Robin version of him. This is his Robin version. I'm not a big fan of his Red Robin persona. This is probably his best costume of the costumes he kind of used semi-regularly. And yeah, this is the one I like. I didn't pick this model up. This is assuming that there's never ever any more new releases for the Batman miniature game. This is part of the final releases the game saw. It was him, a version of Killer Croc for Two-Face's crew, and then like Lucius Fox plus somebody for Batman, and like, you know, the Vigilante, as they're now known, affiliation. So the reason I picked him up is because a UK retailer, Wayland Games, I recommend them, not sponsored by them, just, you know, they're pretty good. I bought quite a lot of stuff from them in the past. They were doing kind of like a, I wouldn't call it necessarily a fire sale for their Batman stock, but out of nowhere they did a Batman miniature game special offer. It was 35% off their listed price, and their listed price was 20% off as default. So you were getting their range of what stock they had left for 55% off. Like I said in my update video regarding the state of the Batman miniature game, there are retailers, and I think they are an example of it, who value the storage space in their warehouse more than the models that are taking it up, at least in regards to Night Models products. That does not surprise me with the fact that the game is basically dead, whether they want to admit it or not. I would not be surprised, assuming they like come out of hiding, which I think they're scared to do right now because of their inability to get product from China for their various Kickstarters and such. But if they did come out of hiding, I would not be surprised if they suddenly announced a 3rd edition for the Batman miniature game, sorry, a 4th edition for the Batman miniature game, to try and, 1, revitalize it, and 2, bring in a new audience, because they're always chasing the dragon. They just don't get it, and that's become very clear over the years. They're an appallingly just bad company. They're incompetent to a dangerous degree. But oh well. Anyway, the model, Tim Drake. For his costume, I used Bao Red, I used Iron Jaws Yellow, I used Black Templar, no Black Legion, with a dry brushing of the fang on it to give a little bit of lighting. I wouldn't say it's gone super great. Same with the same black for the boots, gloves, pants, whatever you call them. Same yellow for the utility belt, trying to pick out the symbol on his chest and such as well. Guilliman Flesh for his flesh tone. Leadbelcher Silver on the base and the bow staff. I did a little bit of Aethermatic Blue while it was damp, with some dry rust from Army Painter, and then non-oil over everything. And that is that. He was really the only one who appealed out of the what could be final releases for the game, so he's the only one I picked up. I was sort of tempted by the Killer Croc, but I've got so many versions of Killer Croc, I wouldn't say it's the best one. I think the one they did based on Arkham Asylum is the best one they did for him. So yeah, this might be the final newest release for the Batman game I might ever get. Still got some older ones to paint up from my final ever big order I did with them. When I'll get around to that, who knows, and I guess I'll just put out a general call again. If you don't want to see the Batman miniature game return in a semi-regular fashion, I did a community post about it, but I would need to print off all the objective decks, all the cards, and get a printing service to do that for me. So there is a small price connected to it that I would need help covering. And finally, let's talk about the main event. We have, from the Mandrake's kill team, the 5 Mandrake Warriors here. That's just like their 5 standard warrior guys, and then the kill team itself comes with 5 specialists, as like that's kind of like the default for kill team is what I'm learning. 5 specialists, 5 normal guys, average kill team is 10 guys. So that's them, and then hot off the press, his base might not be finished to like cracking open with the fancy paint. We have one specialist, I don't remember what he's called, but he's the one who hides in shadow, hence why he's kind of doing like weird shadow magic. Let's just point this down a little bit and talk about them. So I used the painting tutorial for picking out some of the things I wanted to use. The only thing that's super worked for them, I think, at a glance, is definitely the warp fire or whatever this is. I really like how that effect turned out. I did try doing some like practiced OSL, I think this is the term. Is that like off-screen lighting? Is that what it stands for? Whatever it stands for. I tried doing that when I first started painting them, and I didn't like how it was turning out. So I decided, nope, this weird magical warp fire is not casting light. I didn't like how it looked. I think part of the reason is the brightest neon that's on all of them. Let's zoom in and get some close-ups now. The brightest green that's part of this warp flame effect is Tesseract Glow, and I don't think that's great for trying to do OSL. But once that's applied, mixed in a little bit of Striking Scorpion Green, and then finished up with Krellin Green, which is kind of like the bluish green. That's where I deviated from the video tutorial I found in terms of how I wanted the flames to look. Same process, Tesseract Glow on the tattoos on their bodies. I decided to use Fire Slayer Flesh for the fabric, which is not one I'd normally use for like a brown fabric. It's meant for, you know, darker skin tone. But I felt like that's the closest contrast paint to matching up to the official paint job. The official paint jobs don't use contrast paint, but in terms of getting a similar effect, I found Fire Slayer Flesh and then non-oil in the shadows of the creases. In the shadows of the creases at the back there. I felt like that did the job. I'm pretty happy with how that turned out on them. Flesh Terror Red for the tassels of their belts. That's just the base coat for their hair with non-oil on it. Lead Belcher Silver for like hooks on their garb and like sickles and such. I use Flesh Terror Red for anything of the handle that looked like it could be decorated. And yeah, but I like how they turned out. And I kind of batch painted the basic warriors because I was on a roll. I was experimenting, so I wanted to keep going because I was like, okay, you know, that kind of works. Oh, I forgot to mention as well, but once I based them in Grey Seer, before I... this one's struggling. There we go. Before I did anything else, I used a... I'm going to have to put the paint name on screen now. It's a off-white dry brushing paint by Citadel. I did a dry brushing of that on top of the Grey Seer to accent the highlights more. I honestly couldn't say if it's made a huge difference. I would have had to do an A/B test and not done it on one of them specifically to test the difference. But that is just something I tested. I didn't have the paints that the video I was watching kind of as a tutorial had, so that was me kind of experimenting with alternative options. So I couldn't say for sure it's made a positive difference or indeed any difference at all. But that is a thing I've done. I might start doing that more in the future as well. I feel like that it hasn't made it worse. Let's put it that way. It may not have made any difference at all, but I don't think it's made it worse. So move on to the next warrior. The weapons they're using are like, it doesn't matter. They're all just using like a physical weapon, and as I say, they're just your standard warrior for a kill team. The biggest problem with this kill team though is all the specialists, with the exception of the one I painted so far, and maybe one that has like an absolutely gigantic greatsword, they all look incredibly similar. I wouldn't say it's as bad as with the Vespids, where the Vespids are really, really hard to tell apart, but it's kind of close, where the specialists for this kill team, which hopefully I'll be able to show you next time, because I plan to have them finished next time. Yeah, it's just at a glance, even if you're playing, it's hard to tell at a glance, like, which one is he again? Is he one of those special guys, or is he a basic warrior guy? I guess that helps that, like, it's a good problem to have, because that means your regular guys, they look pretty good. Like, these are cool models in pretty cool poses. I like them. But when they look as cool as the specialists, it means that they're harder to pick out when it's important to know where your specialists are. The rock he's standing on is part of what he's modelled with, incidentally. And on that note, I should talk about the base before we talk about the fancy guy. Citadel do 2 texture base paints. I always talk about Modern Earth because that's the only one I ever remember the name of. That's the black one that cracks. I used it for a lava base recently, if you want to go back a video or 2. But they do 2 that are kind of Mars red, and one of them is kind of the same cracked effect that I've done in the past for like sandstone paints that they do, and modern earth as well indeed. But they also have one that kind of does like a crust effect. And I bought the one that I thought was the crust because I actually liked the look of that one better. And after I'd applied it, I was waiting for it to dry. I think this is the model I painted first, incidentally, because I tried to do like a double layer, and that's why his base is especially like segmented. And I realized I bought the wrong one, didn't I? I looked up pictures online and they must have been labeled wrong, because I am very sure I ordered the one that I looked up pictures of. I think the picture was labeled wrong. So yeah, there is two of them. One of them is crusty, one of them is cracked. I wanted crusty, I got cracked. So after like it was already on, so it was like, well, I'm not ordering the other one now. I've got this one. It's still a fine effect. It's just not particularly the effect I wanted. But in terms of just like, I think actually like that color of base actually enhances how they look. I don't know. I don't know much about color theory or anything like that, but I feel like it complements how they look and makes them stand out better. I can't put it into words how. It's just that's what I think. Anyway, to end on, the one specialist that I've done so far, 4 more to go. He's casting like a shadow thing. They've got a whole thing about shadow, and they can teleport, and in shadow they're fragile but dangerous assassins. So I used all the same paints for everything about him except when it gets to the shadow cloak, which actually turned out pretty neat. I used Sigurd Burgundy on all of it. While it was wet, I then used Shyless Purple. There's a contrast paint I haven't used for a while. But I needed a dark purple. I didn't want a light purple. I wanted a dark one. So I just put streaks of it in between the lines. And I don't think it's turned out... Like, I don't think you can pick it out, but there is actually a blue in there as well. I think you can kind of see the blue, like here. I did a little bit of Ultramarines blue as well, again, while it's still damp, just to try and create like a nice blend of shadowy colours. I'm going to be doing something similar when I eventually do paint the other half of the Catacombs box for Warhammer, which is basically Age of Sigmar Drukhari. So they've got all this kind of stuff going on as well, and I'm going to use this effect because I really like how it turned out. Oh, you can actually, hopefully the camera, yeah, you can actually see the blue better on the inside there. Maybe I just applied it thicker, it was already partially dry, so it stuck better, or didn't mix. But yeah, I kind of like that. So that is 1 out of 4 specialists done. And that, as they say, is that. I feel like I didn't ramble, but I bet I did. I bet I'm going to look at this in the editing software and be like, oh, yep, same length as it always is, about 18 minutes, give or take. But hey, next time I plan to have the rest of the models for the Mandrakes painted up. You might even see them in a Kill Team Battle Report before you see me, talking about the other half of them. Beyond that, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I did assemble some Fallout Wasteland Warfare, not many things, just a couple. So you might see that. I have to be in the right mood to work with Modifius resin because it is appalling to paint. And then, oh, as my dog yawns to get my attention, are you bored of me talking as well? Yeah. I'm not sure what else there will be. I'm very into painting Kill Team right now, but I do like to try and have a variety. What that variety will be, who knows. There might be some Battletech in there. If you want to show me what you've been painting, feel free to do so on Blue Sky or in my Discord server. I will always happily look at what miniatures you've been painting. And thanks for watching. Hope this inspires you to get through your pile of grey shame. It doesn't matter if you're good at painting, as long as you enjoy the process. I will see you in about 2 weeks for another update. Until then, ta-ta for now.